everyone, I'm Akshi Vimal and today I'm going to be speaking to Paul Fayad. He's the co-founder of ELM Learning and Positive Leader. He's also a humanitarian that works heavily in Nepal with young girls to stop them from being sex trafficked. He also started the East Side Youth Sports Foundation in Detroit that gives young children access to sports, specifically hockey, who wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity. All right, firstly, thank you so much for being here today, Paul. So before we start, can you just give us a quick introduction about yourself? Just a little, 1 minute?
Sure.
30 seconds?
Okay, 30 seconds. Well, obviously, I'm from the United States. I live in Detroit, just outside of Detroit. Education-wise, I have an undergraduate degree in small business management and entrepreneurship, management or an executive degree, MSA, Master's in Organizational Behavior, a specialty in organizational behavior.
Is that psychology?
It is organizational psychology, so it's not individual psychology. Yeah. It's more of how organizations tick, what makes them work, relationship building, that sort of thing. I'm married. I have 3 sons. One of them is Andrew, as we're all well aware, and Dante is our middle son, and Michael's our youngest son. My wife and I live in Detroit. They all live in 3 different cities, which makes it very nice for me and for
Lots
her.
of places to travel.
Yes, we get to go to 3 beautiful cities in the United States. I do a lot of traveling. I have 4 foundations that I work with. One that I started in Detroit. For disadvantaged kids to be able to play sports all the way through to college, as well as literacy. And then I do work in Nepal with the Tsering group, where I spend time with them to help with education for mainly disadvantaged girls who would somehow be sex trafficked if they didn't go to school. And then I do work with another fund out of South America in Colombia, Bogota, which helps transform former prostitutes and street into farmers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so involved in a few different things.
Wow, okay, so lots of good work there. So how did you sort of start in this whole community outreach sort of path? Like, was it always something you wanted to do? Like, because you're working with so many funds, started so many organizations, like what sort of made you take that first leap to doing this sort of work?
So I think what happened was I became very successful at the corporations that I ran and was able to convert them into end results where I would then have the capacity to be able to do what I do. So most of it's come about since maybe the 25 years of focusing my attention on building the companies that I work for, that I own, having them become successful, and then realizing from my childhood that I needed to use that money to create a better environment for people that were disadvantaged. And it started in Detroit. Knowing that because Detroit is such a racially divided city, that somebody had to use their influence and their ability to be able to provide for children, to be able to have something beyond a lack of hope. So started providing sports, been involved in sports all my life. We set up the foundation, East Side Youth Sports Foundation, and using it to be able to get kids to be able to play hockey that normally wouldn't play hockey. So children of color on the ice in a sport that's primarily European and white dominated. And being Lebanese, it was something special for me to be able to provide for other kids. And then it just kept blossoming. I went for a trek in northern Nepal because I love high altitude trekking, and found out, being stuck in a village, that that the sex trafficking was happening to young girls because of the devaluation.
In the village that you went to go trekking?
In all of the villages, but in particular in the village that I was stuck by weather in. And then
just by chance.
Just by chance, by God, right? Yeah. By the forces beyond our control. What happened was the weather changed. We couldn't go to Everest, so I ended up going to one of the schools to see what the kids were up to have some fun and do some coloring, and then found out from the teachers and the monasteries up there that this was occurring. So found a fund that was a friend of mine. We've become very good friends, and decided that, you know, I needed to be involved.
Yeah. So what made you go to Nepal the first time? Like,
That's a really good question. I don't have a clue.
No idea.
No, what happened was I did a lot of trekking in the United States, the Tetons, Upper New York, the Adirondacks, different mountains, and they were all very small mountains, and I wasn't getting the appreciation. I always wanted to be in the Himalayas, and Andrew was attending the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And my wife and I had gone to his graduation. We were walking down the street, and there was a sign that said the Himalayan bookstore. And I'd always talked about going to the Himalayas. So she said, there's your chance, go do it.
Sign.
And that's when it started.
So you just decided
Yes, I think all my life I wanted to be in the Himalayas. As a child, I was always fascinated with the mountains.
So it was on your first trip there that you went to the school and you found out about the girls?
So the first trip was right after the earthquake, and that killed thousands of people. And it turned out that the kids were all in school, or I shouldn't say in school, they were all working in the fields. The parents were working in buildings. So all the parents were killed, but the kids were saved, so to speak. So there was weird, you know, some of the parents were trekkers, and they would have been up on a mountain trekking, and they died. So we had a lot of children that came out of the earthquake that were being sold and or trafficked. So that was right at 2015 while I was there. So it was fate that I was there to find out that this was happening. A lot of the Buddhist monasteries had these children, were nowhere to take them. And then eventually the villages who were desperate in need of money, or the mothers, would sell the children to either older men in other villages to work as slaves for them and reproduce, or they would be sold to other countries to be slaves.
And how old are the girls?
So the girls can disappear anywhere between the ages of about 8 or 9. But in particular, 14 and 15-year-olds were taken because they had reached maturity. Right. Wow. Yeah. That's scary.
Yeah, that's so far from the reality so many of us live that, like, it's hard to believe that even in this day and age that it's happening. And at such an alarming rate that there's so many girls that it happens to. So what does please tell me if I'm pronouncing it right, Tsering Fund?
Yes.
So what exactly do they do?
So Tsering, the woman who actually started the fund with a very famous trekker who lives right now, she's older and lives in Montana. Her husband and her started the fund with Tsering. So Tsering's fund began back in the 1990s, I believe, as an opportunity for schools to be built and for an orphanage that we actually run so we could keep an eye on the girls. So the concept was, if you provide an education and the girl would go back to either run the tea houses or be a doctor or a lawyer or a nurse or a dentist or whatever, that the parents would then see the value of the girl.
Yeah, I've read somewhere that they said that, like, educating adolescent girls that can unlock trillions in, like, the economy within the country.
Right.
But so many of these, like, impoverished countries, they just don't see the value in young girls besides reproduction.
Right. So education education brings out the, right? What is the value? So we focused on education, and we said, we'll change the minds of the culture of the people if they could see that there's a value beyond reproduction. And it's working. We have over 400 kids. Yeah, we've got doctors. A couple of girls will be lawyers shortly. Wow. A lot of them are in management. And what happens is sponsors pick up the girls and then become involved in their lives. So my wife and I sponsor 15 girls, ages 6 through 18. We have one in college that just started this year. Our youngest one just started. She's an orphan with her sister. And then we sponsor 4 boys that are at the orphanage that would have timed out. And unless somebody sponsored them, they wouldn't be able to go on to college.
Yeah.
So 2 of them are going to be engineers. And the other 2 are, one is going into computer science and the other one's going into management.
Wow.
So we keep an eye on them. I communicate with them. We talk to them on a weekly basis, sometimes monthly. We provide for their education, room and board, dentistry, whatever it is that we can help them with.
Do you, when you went to Nepal, did, like this sort of the sex trafficking of young girls and all that, is it something that is kind of apparent when you're there, or is it, do you feel like it's just kind of underneath?
It's not apparent at all.
You wouldn't have known if...
No. Which you would never know. It's very stealth.
Like, you know how sometimes if you've ever been to India, like you can see that like there's a lot of like young children that are like on the street that are begging, and you know that they're possibly part of some bigger organization and somebody's like you can see it, but you wouldn't say so in Nepal. You
wouldn't see it because they're taken out of Nepal. So the girls are not staying in Nepal. They're taken out in Nepal.
And where do they usually get sent to?
I would love to mention the countries, but it may not be a good thing to do.
But are they Asian countries, or do they?
Asian, almost all Asian countries. There is a bit going on in the West where you could see it happening. You know, they end up in bars dancing or in as prostitutes in certain areas.
And is there any legislation in Nepal to kind of stop this from happening?
There is, and it's very, very strong. You could be put in jail for taking advantage of a child, especially a child underage in a village, but they don't know it. So we now have a lawyer who is working for us, and she's going to help us educate the parents in the villages and through the school system.
But are the laws enforced?
No. So bribery is a big issue. Nepal's doing everything they can to stop it, without question. And it's a beautiful country, and I love this country.
It's not defining of the country.
Is we have just like all countries, there's corruption in different districts and different regions because people are desperate.
Yeah, I mean, even in Malaysia, there's a lot of great laws and things in place, but there is also, you know, it's not everything is enforced, or maybe can be enforced with the systems in place.
Right.
Wow. So you've also recently made a documentary.
Yes.
And it's called, what is it? Halambu?
Halambu. Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about that?
So Halambu is a district. It's just outside of Langtang is way up north by the Tibetan border. Halambu is just a bit below. It's a beautiful district. And what happened was many years ago, a young man who was 17, 18 years old, who was Brahmin, Hindu, was accepted into engineering school, decided to do a trek up in Langtang and went through Halambu to get to Langtang. And as he was going through, he fell in love with the Halambu district and realized there were no schools there. So in a little village called Malanchi, he decided to not go to engineering school, to forgo his heritage, and he stayed. And he opened up a school and took in 19 of the girls there because he realized that the trafficking in Halambu was very big because it was based on a culture of many years ago when there was a monarchy, that the girls of Halambu, they're Halamo girls. They're beautiful. They have distinct features. They're like a part Tibetan, part mountain. And the royalty would go up to take their concubines from this region. So there is a history there.
Yeah.
So he saw that this was happening and had the vision of what education could bring. So he opened up a little school, had 19 girls, and he did that back in the 1980s, 90s. Eventually, it started to build. He got the government to build the school, but the funding was only for the school and the teachers, which meant girls would still have to pay to get into the school. So there were a number of girls from the villages that he saw that could not be afford to pay. So he became partners with the Tsering Fund. We started to help. We have 119 girls there now, 120 girls there right
Wow.
now out of the 400 girls that are there and boys. So he brought us
It's a
in.
small village.
Right,
Yeah.
to be able to, and it's a small village with a lot of other villages attached for us to be able to do it. Well, one of the villages where this young girl lived with her brother, her mother had been trafficked. They think she might have caught a disease while she was out of the country. She ended up dying, the mother. The two little kids had the father. The father ended up, they say he ate raw chicken or something. He died 60 days later. We think there are other reasons.
Yeah.
And the two girls were left as orphans, which meant
How
that they
old were
would have
they,
been,
too?
so she was, I think she was 8 and the brother was 10. And they would have been
Just
trafficked.
babies.
She would have been
Yeah.
trafficked. He would have been put into the porter system. In other words, to carry like a mule up the mountains, which is, it's a beautiful system. It works very well. They make a lot of money if that's all they have.
Yeah.
But the grandmother took the kids and decided not to sell them. And, did weaving. She had barley, she had milk, and she made like a moonshine called Roxy and sold all these things for them to be able to go to secondary school. And the story of...
She really hustled.
But these children would have to walk 2 miles down the mountain to get to the secondary school 6 days a week for 7 years, and then back up again to come home every night. So that journey, which I've done personally, I've walked the area to the secondary school, back up again, was amazing that they actually did this as little tiny children, 7 years old, alone. And it's leech infested because it's part of a rainforest as you get further down, so to speak, a jungle. They got picked up by this teacher in Malanchigayam, which is the secondary school. So they went to the primary school. They had to go to a secondary school. That's his school. But the grandma went to the school, which is about 4 hours away, and he told them, I will find a sponsor. So the Serenes Fund picked up this little girl and her brother. She's now graduating from nursing, and he's in the United States in his 4-year program at Montana State in engineering.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's very huge. So it's all of her friends are gone. She has no idea where they are. That village was, all the girls her age were trafficked. She was the only one because of her grandmother. So it's the story of his life and the junction of when the two of them crossed paths with our fund, Tsering Fund, and the ability for a life to be changed, 2 lives to be changed. Now, she's going to go back to that Malanchigayam village. She wants to open up a hospital there. So we're now looking at funding as to how do we create, because there's no hospital in the region. There's only clinics. So she's going to change the lives of hundreds of people.
And I've also read that they say that that's the thing about when you invest in girls, is that they often go back.
Yes.
And they lift up the society in which that they came from. Not to say that boys and men don't do the same, but the instances of girls and women doing that is higher, and that they will. It's like an investment that will come back to you.
Yes, and the girls create the family. The men, with all due respect, the men are trekking and doing what they need to do.
Yeah.
The women are the ones that control the culture and the future of the family. So if they're powerful and they've made a living and education's important, then there's a better chance that the girl and the boy will have an education.
Wow. And the documentary is up for an awarded.
So we just got news. We were in the finals for the BAM Film Festival. We didn't win an award, but the fact that we're a finalist, we're very excited about.
Yeah.
And we didn't make the film to win an award either. So I kept reminding them, because I think the cinematographer and the director are all there and I'm here. We're a little disappointed, but I said, that the foundation of what we're doing.
The fact that it went that far, that so many people are going to be able to see it.
Yes.
That's so important. So, I mean, prior to the Tsering Fund, it was the East Side Youth Sports Foundation that you started, right? So made you start that foundation? What was it about sport? What was it about hockey? And
so for me, it was I grew up in a poor family. My father was an immigrant from Lebanon. He didn't speak English.
So you would be a first generation.
First generation, yes. And he became a carpenter. So he came to the United States because he wanted to make a family and a future for his family. So I grew up, never been to a restaurant, all home cooking. I'd go to school with Lebanese food, and kids would be like, what's this guy all about, right? And my opportunity came because my father couldn't afford to send me to college. So I paid for my own college. I went to work full time. My opportunity came when I became involved in the martial arts, United Taekwondo, which was under a grandmaster from Korea, Sang-Kyu Shim. And he kind of gave me this feeling through the whole concept of what they call the Hwarang Do in Korea, which is the flowering youth. That if we focus our attention on youth, we can change the world, right? So we began to do, he would teach us about all the different cultures of the world, Buddhism, Hinduism. He was a Tao, and he focused a lot on Zen Buddhism and Taoism and Lao's, Book of Change. And it was an introduction for me to see something beyond what the West was offering. Not that it's wrong. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I was born Catholic and raised in a Christian family. But it gave me an opportunity through him to see what change can be. So he was a beautiful mentor for me. And he changed how I saw myself. Through education, he focused on that heavily. You have to go to school. You have to become, who the best that you could be. You can never settle for something less. So unfortunately, he was killed by a drunk driver, and when I was about 38 years old. And I maintained being a part of that culture, and then through injuries, I couldn't train anymore, in a number of different surgeries and things. But I maintained that desire to help. So I think that was the part that really, really kept me going, was if I could make a difference, I'm going to focus on the children. And I played hockey all my life. So hockey became an avenue. The NHL had contacted us because they saw that we had started a foundation and said that they would help us, the National Hockey League, in the city of Detroit, if we could help children of color be able to play hockey. So we started a campaign, and it progressed. And we bought an ice rink. We spent about $1.5 million, fixing it, making it more modern. And now we have, we went from maybe 1% to maybe 20% of the kids that are playing to be kids that never would have played hockey ever.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just giving someone the opportunity that it would have never even been in their radar prior, that it can really change their lives.
Absolutely, yes.
So when you made the move to, start doing this community work and doing more service, I think that's something probably a lot of people feel. I think myself as well, I get caught in this thought that how much can I do? You can get quickly jaded, especially when you see the realities. I can imagine going to Nepal and seeing that, there's so many girls that need to be saved. Or if you are back in Detroit, that there's so many children that could use this opportunity. And even here in Malaysia, sometimes when I'm doing the book project, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm bringing libraries to some of these kids, but what am I really doing? How did you kind of get past that feeling, that limiting feeling of, I'm just one person, how much can I do? And even if I am doing something, does it matter? And is it working? And how do you kind of get past those feelings to keep going and doing it?
I think it's a very good question. And I think I thought that I knew the answer, right? That if I can affect one or maybe two or three, Give me a minute.
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think emotionally it's very difficult. I think you have to be careful not to allow yourself to become so emotionally involved that because you can hurt yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to look at it as to what is the capacity of what can be done, and how do I get other people to share this insight of what can be done. So you have to remove that, and I wasn't good at that at all. I am an emotional person, and I can become very much overly involved. My wife says I don't know how to say no, which is why we have 19 kids that we're sponsoring, right? And I'm now learning. So part of it is I found someone who can help me. I found a guru, right? A master, another master who could take me to a next level, which is, in order for me to live that self-determined life, the realization that I have is I can't do it alone. I need help, right? So you have to find other people that can help you with that.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate enough, right? That changed a lot because the frustration was so high with me.
Yeah.
I almost started not caring whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then destroying myself in the process of doing that.
Because so many of the issues that we're trying to solve, we're trying to help, is that it's a systematic issue that's so much bigger than anything that one person can do, that it can feel very frustrating. I know sometimes when I go to the orphanages here in Malaysia, or even refugee schools, I remember the first library I did after, I think, a year and a half off because of the pandemic, I finished with the kids in the refugee school, and I sat in my car and I cried because I was like, why are these children have refugee status? Why can't they go to regular schools? Why is the system in place failing them?
Right.
And I'm just like, it's okay. I can't do anything. I've done what I can, and now I've got to go home, I guess.
That's an acceptance, right?
Yeah.
We're pebbles, right? In a big river. We're not dams. So I guess if you look at it that way, if you look at it as I'm a pebble, I got to get a whole bunch of other pebbles.
Yeah.
And alone, maybe I do a little bit, and I might alter a tiny bit of water. But if I could get enough pebbles over the course of a lifetime, then maybe it's not in my lifetime. Obviously, I'm older, but maybe what's left will change in some way.
Yeah.
And I could live with that now. But that's something that I had to be taught.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that was going to come to me on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just a tough one.
Yeah,
if you decide to do this sort of work in any capacity, you kind of have to. And
you could see it still affects me.
Yeah.
It's a difficult question for me to answer because then it's a realization that I don't think I should be able to. I can't tolerate the realization. So I have to remove that emotional part and focus on the logistics of what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also just sitting in that feeling that, what if what I can do is help, these 5 girls in this one village, or the 19 children that I'm sponsoring, then that's 19 more than that will help that wouldn't have been if I didn't get involved.
Right.
But it's hard to feel like that's enough, right?
No, very much so. But I don't have a choice. Right.
I mean, if everybody helps 19 children, then they'll all be helped.
And you have to count on the 19 children to be able to turn around and give back again.
Yeah. Which is what you are seeing with what you've been doing.
Right. Yes, very much so.
So it is working.
Yes. Oh, I have faith. I just, I won't see it all, obviously. It won't be something that's going to be a part of my life.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with that too.
Okay, so now we're going to flip it. We're going to talk a bit. I want to ask you a bit about the PAT test I did, positive leadership.
Okay.
That. So